So, how do you even begin to study a topic where one side sees timeless, revealed truth and the other sees a human social construct? That's really the core challenge when we dive into gender and religion. Today, we're going to build an intellectual toolkit to help us navigate this incredibly complex and fascinating intersection with some real clarity.
Okay, let's get right to the heart of it. On one hand, you've got this perspective, which comes out of feminist philosophy, that sees religion as a social construct. Something created by people, and because of that, it can be changed. But on the other hand, you have the theological view that religion is a divine revelation, something handed down that's meant to be permanent. Understanding this fundamental divide, that is the first and honestly the most crucial tool in our kit.
So to tackle this, here's our game plan. We'll start by exploring that big divide. Then we'll add our next tool, two key perspectives, the insider and the outsider. After that, we'll define our terms, so we're all on the same page. Then we'll get into why this all matters so much today, introduce a powerful 5-part framework for a deeper analysis, and wrap it all up with the big question that keeps this whole conversation going.
So, let's jump into our first section. The source material for this explainer points out that these two worldviews, religion as a social construct versus divine truth, they actually operate on two different continuums. Basically, they're often not even speaking the same language, which is exactly why we need a way to bridge that gap in our understanding.
So that's the big question, right? How do we study this without just picking a side? Well, for social scientists, and for us here, the answer is in that toolkit of analytical concepts. These tools don't ask us to agree or disagree. Nope, they just let us step back, look at the relationship between gender and religion objectively, and see the whole messy, complex picture.
Okay, so our first real analytical tool involves looking at the subject from two totally distinct perspectives, the insider and the outsider. And trust me, both of these are absolutely essential for a complete picture, and knowing which lens you're looking through is key.
Think of it this way. The insider view tries to understand a religion on its own terms. What do the believers actually believe? Why do they do a certain ritual? So for an insider, a specific religious dress code might be seen as a vital expression of their faith and their identity. The outsider view, though, steps back and analyzes religion as a social force. That exact same dress code might be studied for how it shapes gender roles or how it interacts with the culture around it. You see? You absolutely need both to get the full story.
Now, to use our toolkit right, we have to be super precise with our language. So let's take a second to define the key concepts we're working with. Getting this vocabulary down is essential for a productive conversation, and, it stops us from talking past each other.
First up, gender. And this is so important. In this academic context, gender is not about biology. It's about the roles, the expectations, and the behaviors that a society builds or constructs and then assigns. And because they're constructs, they're not set in stone. They can, and they absolutely do, change across time and cultures. And this famous quote from Simone de Beauvoir, man, it just nails it. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This is a total cornerstone of modern gender studies and a really key idea in our toolkit. It just perfectly frames gender as this ongoing process we're all part of, not some fixed state we're just born into.
Okay, next up, religion. The word's origin gives us a fantastic clue here. It comes from the Latin word religere, which means to bind. And at its core, that's exactly what religion does. It's a system of beliefs and practices that binds a community of people together through a shared worldview and a common moral vision. And this leads us perfectly to religious traditions. These are the specific things people do, the rituals, the prayers, the yearly ceremonies that make a religion tangible, that bring it to life. They're like these powerful living threads that connect believers to their history, to their sacred stories, and maybe most importantly, to each other.
I mean, think about the Hajj in Islam, that incredible pilgrimage to Mecca, or baptism in Christianity, that rite of initiation, or a Passover Seder in Judaism, a ritual meal that retells a foundational story. These aren't just symbolic acts. They are incredibly powerful rituals that create and reinforce a community's identity, connecting people across generations.
So we're building this whole toolkit. We're defining our terms. But why? Why does any of this matter? What's really at stake when we study gender and religion together? I mean, why is this so important?
It matters because this study helps us get past all the simplistic stereotypes. It lets us see how religion can be a really profound source of empowerment for some people, while at the same time it can act as a source of social constraint for others. It shows us that neither religion nor gender are these single monolithic things. They are incredibly diverse forces that have a deep, real, and lasting impact on societies and on every one of our lives.
All right, let's add one more really powerful tool to our kit. For a truly deep analysis, social scientists use this 5-part framework. It helps us understand all the different roles that religion plays in the world, way beyond just a simple set of beliefs.
This framework basically pushes us to see religion through 5 different lenses. We can look at it as a cultural system, filled with values and stories, as a source of identity, creating a sense of belonging, as a network of social relationships, as a set of daily practices, what people actually do, and finally, as a structure of power. Using all 5 of these gives us a much richer and more complete understanding.
And let's zoom in on that last one for a sec. Power. This is a huge area of study. Religion often works as a kind of soft power, shaping social norms and guiding people's lives not through force, but through shared beliefs, moral authority, and community. It's a really powerful and often very subtle influence.
So let's bring it all together. We've built our toolkit, and now it's time to do a quick review of the key components and leave you with one final, pretty big thought that sits right at the center of this whole topic.
So the main takeaway here is this. When we recognize those 2 foundational worldviews, when we use both the insider and the outsider perspectives, and when we apply that 5-part framework, we can analyze the intersection of gender and religion with so much more clarity and nuance. And remember, the whole point is that these are tools for understanding, not for winning a debate. And that brings us right back to where we started, to that core tension. If gender is a social construct, and for millions and millions of believers, religion is a revealed truth, where can these 2 very different worlds find common ground on vital, shared issues of human ethics? That is the question, and that is the continuing conversation.